former Fulton County District Attorney and Sheriff.
Formerly a judge, and he knows a little bit about how these things go.
Mohawk Valley, legal eagle, lawman.
He is the Sheriff of Fulton County, New York. Just such an amazing guy.
This is the Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.
You're listening to the Rich Giardino Show. Our guest today is Chris Dancy, and we're going to talk about the world of AI, artificial intelligence. Even before it was on anyone's radar, I had been accused of having artificial intelligence, so I was ahead of the curve. Chris is an author. He's been a panelist. He's nationally renowned, and he speaks all over about the phenomenon of AI, what it is, what it means, and how it relates to us in our daily lives. So in a moment, we're going to get started with Chris. I hope it's an informative program today. Hey, Chris, I want to thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing well, staying warm, Sheriff.
We've got to both do that. Listen, the one thing I was going to do is there was a whole series of old books called Math for Idiots and all that, but they're dummies. Math for Dummies and things. I can't do that nowadays without offending someone. So I'm going to call it AI for the uneducated to AI. And I'm going to ask you, first of all, tell us a little bit about your background as far as in the field. And then let's go into what is AI, and we'll go from there.
Wow. Well, I'm 59. I live in Montgomery County, just south of you. Spent all my time in Fulton County. I grew up, being heavy into computers in the late 70s and early 80s. And one thing led to another. My parents said, computers will never take off, but I kept playing with them. I got into technology and started building systems for everybody from the White House to the Waffle House between the late 90s and early 2000s. And kind of by 2008, my life was falling apart. I built this little computer program that watched what I did and looked for patterns. This is very early machine intelligence. And one day, about 2012, I was at a conference and someone saw my computer like reacting and said, "What is that?" And I said, "It's this program I wrote to watch me." And within like a month, I was all over TV Business Week covers. I was offered a book and a TV show, and Apple came to me. We sold the patent I did to that for Apple Watch. So if you're using a piece of technology today, from Apple to Spotify to Google, I probably wrote something in it. So my entire life has been consumed with using technology to kind of watch the way the world works and then make it sensible. Today's AI, Sheriff, is just an extension of all of that. When you think about a lot of the way that people interact with their computers at work or their phones at home, a lot of times when they go to open up an app or look at something, you're already presented a series of choices before you do anything, right? You just open up Facebook and there's some things to look at. You just open up your maps and there's some things to look at. That's coming from the technology knowing you well enough to assume what you'll want the moment you glance at it. Does that make sense?
Yep. The algorithms, is that what you call it?
Yeah. So you're a lot further along than you think. So I wouldn't say you're for dummies. So algorithms were an early precursor to what we would now call modern AI. So algorithms, it was algorithms, machine learnings, and then AI. So algorithms basically said, here's some patterns we're going to watch, and then we're going to feed something back. Machine learning took that and then did it on the device. And then AI basically said, what happens if we combined Rich's behavior, what he does on his phone normally, with everyone like Rich, right? People with same age range. And we took all of that information and made assumptions and predicted what Rich is going to want to do next. And that's really where we got modern AI. If you're old enough to remember a movie from the 70s called Soylent Green, have you ever?
Yes, I remember Soylent Green. It was a good Charleston Heston movie.
Right? Good cop movie.
Yeah, great.
That was a cop movie. It was cops that saved that movie. So at the end, for those of you younger children, as we would call them, Soylent Green was a movie set in a dystopian future where the world had gone to, I got ready to swear, I won't, had gone to hell at handbasket, and there was no food. And there was food produced by the government called Soylent Green. There was Soylent Red, Soylent Blue. But the whole premise of the movie is you find out at the end, when the police do an investigation, that Soylent Green isn't some government food. It's all the people who've passed away that get turned into food. And what a lot of people can't seem to appreciate around the AI boom that we're in, especially where we're going to, is it's us. It's our decades and decades worth of behavior online, on our phones, all mashed up into a big pot and stirred around and being fed back to us. Does that make sense?
It does. And nowadays you couldn't make Soylent Green because of the food dyes. They'd be banning it and we'd be in trouble, you and I. It would be Soylent Bland. Here's a question for you. What's the difference between AI and, I call it chapstick, but chap channel or whatever the hell you young kids say it. What is the chat thing? Because I've had friends who say you can write a speech, you can do research, you can put in a couple facts and they give it back. So that's just another form of AI? What is it called? Chat GPT or something?
Chat GPT is generative AI, and that's normally how most people understand basically AIs that exist today. Rich, you and I, we grew up with companies like IBM, Microsoft, Google, right? IBM, Microsoft are kind of the earlier programs that you and I grew up with. But today, the big generative AI companies, well, those are companies like OpenAI, Gemini by Google, XAI by Elon Musk, Meta AI of Facebook, and then, of course, something called Claude and Anthropic. So today, when people think of AI, they usually think of ChatGPT. To be honest with you, that's what they're thinking. They're thinking a text-based application they can go into and just type, and then it gives them information back. Kind of like a glorified spell check, except spell check that would start to say, hey, I think you meant this word, but did you want to know all these other things? And generative AI is very much different than kind of, multimodal AI, which creates videos and looks at pictures and does other things like that.
Chris, see if I'm right or wrong. I forgot, but I think the computer course I took in high school was Fortran.
Yep, I did too.
You had the cards and you punch the little holes in the cards and you'd make your programs and you'd make animal faces and you would do that, games, but it was all in time intensive and you had the little cards and you had to punch the holes in the right place to get your goal. So now all that is gone and all of it is techies like you who've developed these different programs, I guess you would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can share my screen with you, Sheriff. Okay. I have something that kind of explains that process, especially if you go back to that day. I'm not sharing the right screen. Let me go ahead and turn that off for a second, and we'll get that going here in a minute. But to your point, back when we're dealing with, the late 70s, 80s, I don't want to, expose how old you are. You had to. If you wanted to talk to a computer, you had to actually have physical media. And this physical media, with little holes in it, as you remember, you'd get a stack of them, you'd put it in there. And that's how the computer understands it. Every time it saw a hole, it goes, oh, there's a 1 or a 0. I know what to do. And it would create your little things. Fast forward just, 5-10 years past that, you probably remember, at home screens and little keyboards. And then a little bit past that, we got mice. And the interface really at that point was basically you touching and were you typing and pointing at things. Fast forward a little bit past that, right? The interface didn't change so much, but the computing went to the cloud. So you get the early 2000s, late 90s, and we started logging into things, right? We'd have dial up and we'd use Yahoo before Google, all these other types of things. But the big difference there was the compute, unlike when you and I had cards or we had a computer on our desk, it was happening someplace else. And then, of course, we all remember smartphones, 2008, the compute came to our hands, but our hands talk to the cloud. What you're seeing now with AI, it really is all of the compute is being done either edge, they call it. Edge just means on your device in something called a secure enclave, or it's being done in the cloud, in secure cloud. For companies like Apple and Google, they'll have a secure cloud. Just think of it as a private, rich cloud. So now when you create programs and work with these, they're talking to these secure enclaves. What AI really is doing in this new world, of these secure enclaves is it's looking at your enclave and communicating with it by looking at everybody else's and using that for answers. So if you ask, a lot of people will say that, or at least Elon will say that, AI is too woke. He'll say it's woke. Well, that's because all the data it's learned from is a certain way. Just like if you ask ChatGPT to be particularly nuanced and romance German, the 1400s, it wouldn't be that good at it. There's not a lot out, didn't have a lot to learn from, right? But as we scan books, as we get more information in there, it gets better and better and better. Does that make sense?
It does. You know what I was going to ask you? I never understood the concept of going online and researching something, and you get all this information. And what I wondered is is it some little old lady or some kid in the cellar who sits there and takes the encyclopedias and puts them in? How do they transition from a hard copy book to something that we just Google? Like I call it the Google machine. You just Google and say, hey, Google the 10 top restaurants around here, or hey, Google the best route to Albany. So like how does that information, which we used to use the map,
triptych,
a paper map, yeah, or we used to go to AAA and get the little flip things like you just did. Who puts all that information online? And how I never understood. Somebody's got to put it somewhere. Somebody's got to scan all this stuff. It doesn't just, come popping up out of the ground. So how does that happen?
That's a good question. So, you almost have to go back now to when you and I were dialed up. We're sitting at home in the late 90s or 2000, we're dialed up before Google. Before Google, Rich, if you wanted to find
Rich.
Okay. If you wanted to find something, you'd go to Yahoo or, BBS's, and you'd put something in and it would find a few things, but like the internet wasn't aware of the internet. Like one website didn't know about another. And one of the first things people did back then was they created web rings. So you'd go to a website in the late 90s, early, 2000s, at the bottom of it would say, see next site. A lot of people don't remember this. You'd click on it, it would take you to a site similar, or someone would share a direct link. It's like before we had phone books, you had to know someone who knew a phone number. Or if you wanted to, find a business before you had a yellow pages in your house, you had to like, where do I go? So the internet needed an indexing system. And that's really what, the internet's purpose was. And it had a light one called DNS, or domain name services. And what it would do is basically you put in, richgiardino.com, and it would go to this big phone book and say, you want to go here. And that's different than search, which you're asking about. You're like, who puts all this information there? So Google, the reason Google is it pioneered something called PageRank. And it's a type of algorithm, the type of system early on. But basically what it did was it said, hey, if someone comes to Google and puts in Fulton County, how does it know Fulton County to list Fulton County, New York versus Fulton County in every other state that has a Fulton County? Who did that? Did someone type in all these Fulton counties? And in reality, all of your Fulton counties have a website, right? Fulton County, California has a website. Fulton County, New York has a website. But how does Google know which one to make first? So what PageRank did is it said it needs to decide how something is important. And it decided at a very early point that it would know that Fulton County, New York was more important than Fulton County, California, by how many people pointed to Fulton County. So if I live in Montgomery County and I have a website in Montgomery County and I say I shop in Fulton County and I have a link that says I shop here to Fulton County and it points, Google would count all the web pages that had links pointing at your Fulton County and say your score is 11. And they'd count all, you know what I mean? So yeah, so like if you Google most connected, just those two words, my name comes right to the top of the page. Well, my name isn't most connected, but enough people have written Chris Dancy, comma, the most connected person, comma, and pointed to my website, which takes my site to the very top of the page.
So in the old days, so that's like in the old days, and I say old days, not too many years ago, you would go to Google and say, online prime beef. And then I would get a list and it would start with, it might say 1,025,000 100,000 pages,
Yeah.
and then you would get the top pages,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
And that's not because it's the best prime beef. It's because it's the people went to that link more than any other one.
People point at that link more than any other one.
Point. Okay. So
So
tell us this, because this has basically been always bothering me. One of the things that's gone on now, there's a series of lawsuits and there's a series of nightmare scenarios where kids get talking to chapstick or one of these things, and the next thing you know, they're depressed. The machine senses they're depressed. They ask, how do I commit suicide? And there's now a series of lawsuits across the country and this phenomena of people, young kids especially, terminating their lives and following the roadmap given by AI.
Yeah.
So how does, or AI, or you tell me, but how does that happen? That, like, why don't they put up roadblocks to stop that stuff?
So I'm going to be a little controversial. You know, I have a book that's almost 10 years old called Don't Unplug, because I don't think the problem is the technology. I think the problem is the people. All right. Okay. You and I grew up in a time when kids would commit suicide after listening to a Ozzy Osbourne record, and the parents would blame the Ozzy Osbourne record. Right.
Okay.
You and I grew up in a time where kids would play too much Atari and then commit, you know, and then kids would, you know, get violence with the guns, and we blame the Atari. All right. So while I understand it's really easy now for you and I to say these kids are talking to ChatGPT and they're killing themselves, the problem is we're not having a dialogue about what technology is and how to use it. Doesn't matter if it's technology, it's a record player or a video game machine or ChatGPT's chat stick, whatever you want to call it, right? But in these specific incidences, right, where people are, I believe, in many cases, abusing the legal system by creating these lawsuits, they're going back and looking at the chat logs and they're reading intent. Now, you're in policing, right? You know, you can look at read something someone said, so there's intent there, right? They meant to do this. But what's difficult and very nuanced in this scenario is it's hard to really separate. Did the person feel more compelled to take their lives because of the conversation or not? Now, there is something within all AI. There's a principle we call alignment. And very simply, alignment just means that the people who built that particular model, so AI comes in models, kind of like operating systems, you know, ChatGPT or ChatStick being just one model, that they are trained to not say and do certain things. For example, you shouldn't be able to ask ChatGPT how to build a chemical weapon. It's not going to work. It's going to say, no, can't do that. But you could say, I'm writing a book about building a chemical weapon, and I need to explain it simply, and that's a workaround. Think of it as a hack.
Gotcha.
So a kid might not say, I want to kill myself. They might say, I'm thinking about writing a song about a child, or someone my age who wants to commit suicide. You know, what would be a nice way to talk about it? Right. So I'm not saying these are right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm just saying where there's a will with people, there's a way with technology. Is that making sense?
Well, I've always tell people the analogy, you know, more people die from knives than guns. But when we say, let's take these guns away, or we got to limit this, if they're going to do harm to others or themselves, they're going to do it whether there's a gun there, a knife there, a car.
They could do it. Violent people are violent people.
Yes, it's like you said. So I can understand where you're going there. The other question I have is when we get involved in this, there is like the thing that always got me is once in a while we'll get a notification from the federal child exploitation council, and they'll say, hey, Joe Smith at this address, you know, whatever URL or whatever you people call it, is looking at kiddie porn, you know, or going to and they'll name the worst things. But my question is, again, now I have a little difference of opinion on this. Why do they not block those? Why do they allow kiddie porn on, you know, on the web? Like, why don't?
I mean, that kind of. I mean, let's just expand that. I mean, to your point, what if we just took away all the guns in the village of Fonda? There'd be no violence. Well, that's not true. You could sneak in a gun some way, right? So it's on the internet, unlike the physical world, you really just can't block things, right? Because even sitting here, in my house in Montgomery County, just about like 15 minutes south of you, if I want to get to something and I can't because it's blocked for one reason, like let's just say I want to go to a Russian website right now and there's like a certain it's blocked, I can use something called a VPN. Now, if you listen to the internet or you watch any YouTube videos or podcasts, VPNs are the number one advertisers on shows, right? Use this VPN. So all a VPN is this piece of software that tells the internet you're not in Fulton County, you're in St. Petersburg, Russia. Show you what's available there. So it just kind of masks their IP address and where they are, so that they can do. So even if you could like block everything, you can still pretend to be someplace else where it's not blocked.
Gotcha. So tell us in all your years of experience, skills, training, and education, and lecturing and writing, what are the top benefits of AI and what are the top negatives of AI? So like we've already dispelled a couple things. So like the kiddie porn stuff, you've explained that there's workarounds. The suicide, there's workarounds.
Yeah.
But what would you say the benefits to society of AI are, and what of AI are?
Let's talk about my I think that are negatives to AI. All right. Okay. I think with all things, especially with technology, people have a way of becoming overly reliant on anything. I know people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who can't drive any place without a GPS. Places they know. Like they know how to get there, but they're still doing the GPS.
Yeah.
Right? I know people who don't know how to like find music to listen to, so they just have to let it be offered to them, or they'll go to the what's new, right? And then it's okay. But if I'm going to be old and curmudgeonly, it's freaking lazy, right? At some point, you have to have some decision making in your life, or else you're no better than any computer you profess to hate. All right. So what I'm seeing with AI now, and especially in government and in just civil society, regular people, is they're turning to it for everything from friendship to life to counseling to medical advice. And again, AI isn't foolproof, right? I don't care if you're using AI to understand something at a high level. But letting it run your entire decision matrix makes you no better than the brain dead people you look at and complain about on the road, right? Yeah. At some point, you have to stand up for what you believe in and be able to back up your decisions. I fear we're heading toward a time where in court, in life, in friendships and relationships, when you're asked why you did something, you'll say, because AI told me to.
Yeah.
That's not an AI problem. That's your parents didn't beat sensitivity into you to think about, is that just because all your friends jumped off a cliff, does that mean you're going to, you know what I mean?
We had that. We had those discussions. Let me just do a quick plug for the show. This is the Rich Giardino Show. Fascinating guest today. We're talking about AI with Chris Dancy, who actually is immersed in the field starting at a young age. Now he's an old man. Well, not that old. He's younger than me. But it's fascinating. We ask you to like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, X, Spotify, Facebook, Apple, all premium level platforms for podcasts. So, Chris, then I see what you're saying. You make a valid point. We make it so easy to blame somebody else, and and there was a great legal book written, The Blame Game, years ago. It might not have been the exact title, but it was, somebody goes and kills their girlfriend and her new boyfriend. And then it's not me. I wouldn't have done it, but I was overwhelmed with grief and I had to release it somehow. Well, go to the gym. Don't kill these people, So it's fascinating what you're educating us about.
So let's talk about your question was, Sheriff, well, what's good?
Yeah, what is good? Give us the good stuff.
Good? Like, what is good? So let's talk about what is good, right? Okay. Now, Sheriff, if you're like me, you probably have stacks of paper you've got to read, right, and get through. Now, here's a The RFP for the city of Boston. This thing's probably 40 pages. Now, listen, I like to read as much as the experts, but I'm not going to sit around and read 40 pages. It's too much. Like I just need, what do I need to do right now, next? That's what I want to know. So AI is great for that. You take these 40 pages, you put them right in AI and say, what's the first thing I need to do in order for this document? Just so you know what you need to do today, right? That's a great use case, right? You got an animal registry that we just launched.
Yeah, let's talk. I don't want to make you stray too far, but when we're done talking about the good about it, let's talk about the animal registry and what we're talking about trying to accomplish.
So we've got
first of all, you're on the good, the bad, and the ugly. So go back
to a lot
the
of AI to talk about for the area that we've built. So that's a good thing, right? Let's just say you got a ton of pictures from a crime scene. I'm gonna make this personalized now for you, not just in general, or any pictures. You got pictures of your childhood or something. You can just dump them all into, ChatGPT or any AI system and say, find anything that looks suspicious, right? Now, you've looked at hundreds of pages or pictures from a crime scene. You think you've seen them, but AI can look at them differently, right? Look for a scratch on a table that you didn't pick up or something anomalous. So AI is really good at taking the task of work and making it easier. So if your whole job is just around tasks, you're probably going to struggle in the future, right? But if your job is policing, the task of reading reports and sending pictures is something that you can do, but you don't have to. Your job is to ascertain what was found in the task of looking at those photos. All right. So there is a good place for it. I think it's a great thing. I use it all the time. A lot of our folks that we work with in different counties around the state and in the United States right now understand that if you get a contract, if you're a small business owner, we have a lot of small business owners who listen to your show, right? They get contracts all the time. You probably read them, sign them, and send them in. Well, no, put that in ChatGPT and say, how is this contract different than the one from last year? And it'll pull it up right. They're not going to tell you the small print. Nothing you can do is say, how can I get this price lower? Read the contract and tell me what I can do different. Simple things like that are an amazing way to save money as a business or a family or a local government institution such as yourself. I'll stop there.
Okay, so here's what's interesting. So in law enforcement, we've started to use all these technologies, facial recognition, license plate readers. We've got all these tools. Some of the legislators are trying to block them, saying, well, they're disproportionately whatever, this way, that way. But here's my question. I see this AI could be used to make our job that more difficult. So if something is manufactured by AI, like a video with you or me, where a bank gets robbed and they do something to make our faces come running out of the bank on bodies, we in law enforcement are novices compared to somebody like you. And we in law enforcement don't have the resources every time to say, okay, go get this guy under contract for $10,000 to tell us we're going to have to distinguish between false AI, real AI, but false subjects and crime solving. And that can be a nightmare, especially if we charge somebody or arrest someone or indict someone. So how do we separate the two? How do we in law enforcement know that we're being gamed or played?
I always think the best law enforcement officers should have started off as teachers, high school teachers, because the first place technology shows itself to be abused is with kids. All right. The first people who have to deal with how do they know if something's real or not, and they've been dealing with it for 3 years now since generative AI became bigger, school teachers. All right. It's no coincidence that they just took away the phones. So it's to be interesting to see what happens with scores. But universities are impacted by this, right? School teachers are impacted by it. You don't know if a work is plagiarized or not. Now, I know a plagiarized school paper written by AI is a lot different than a fake video of bank robbery, but at the same time, it's the same technology, right? Write a fake paper that sounds like me, create a video of Rich Giardino and Chris Dancy running out of a bank with blood on their hands and tax the cash. And the reality is, just like teachers struggled with that, they had to actually buy and get detection software, read these papers and tell me if you think, there were built by AI, right? And it gives them a score. And what's terrible about this, even that scenario now, is kids are failing because they actually did the work, but the detection software is wrong, right? So it's picking up false positives on that. So law enforcement, unfortunately, is going to have to do a lot of training, I think, first and foremost. One of the things we've done is we've worked with the Sheriff's Association here in New York State to kind of give them a primer. We've gone to a lot of sheriff's offices all over the state and just on hands-on training. How do you know it's a fake photo? There are things you can look for. How do you know it's a fake video? There are things you can look for. Now, obviously, recently President Trump has shared a video of him in a F-15, flying over. Now, people know, like you and I know, it was a really good AI video, right? We know that he wasn't in an F-15, right? That's a far example, right? But let's just suppose he could have been. If you were to actually watch that video closely, there's certain things you can look for in any video, and people at home can try this now, or any photo. Look at fingers, right? AI can't do fingers very well, right? Look for the way that bodies are positioned. You'll notice that. Now, all that to be said, we've only got about 24 months until that's done, right? If you go back and watch videos from last year, they're AI. This year, you're not sure. Next year, it's going to be indetectable, which means you're going to have to start looking at metadata. So if you were a police officer and I sent you a photo, Sheriff, you can right click on that photo and say, see the type of camera it was taken with and the place it was taken, and it's called EXIF data. That's in all photos today. Like if anyone ever sends you a picture, look at that photo behind the photo. We're going to start looking behind the media that's submitted as evidence. We're going to have to start running it through detection software. And more than anything, we're going to have to start looking at larger patterns that would probably show that someone would have, because if someone does this, someone had a reason to create the fake data. So the real crime isn't the crime being reported. It's the accusation being hurled using. It's a technological weapon.
Correct. So that's the fear. Because
it's not even fear, it's here.
Yeah, it is
here.
So it's fascinating. The technology. Let's talk for a minute how we met, because we met on the animal registry. Not you and I on the animal registry, but we met on the development of your animal registry. We recently had a law passed in our county. One of our board members of the supervisors, Christina Van Valkenburg, passed an animal registry bill, which became county law, which is if you're convicted of a crime relating to or convicted of a lesser included relating to animal overdriving or abuse or certain cases, certain sections of law, then you have to register for 15 years and you can't buy or sell animals. And there's a responsibility to check that they're on there. So we will have a freestanding registry for Fulton County, and there's a dozen or more other counties in the state that have registries and have their own freestanding. So, Chris, the benefit of already having one registry in place or more, and then integrating. Yeah. So it's simple. It's simpler than one would think. It's a matter of getting the other counties on board, right? And then you just say, okay, here's your link. And then everyone gets linked to each other. Is that right? Is that the way? Am I explaining it easy?
Exactly. So if you think about something like the animal abuse registry, how does AI play a role in that, right? When Christina Van Valkenburg came to me and said, hey, I've really got this project I'd like to do, my first thought was, well, gosh, we have to build a site, we have to build a database, we have to have some way to do all this, and it's all based on this law. So just like the example I shared with you earlier, I said, give me the law. So she gave me the law. I put the law in AI. I said, tell me how you want this to function. So she said, I want to be able to show people on this website. I want people to be able to go there and search for someone, see what they're convicted of. I want the system to alert the sheriff's department if someone hasn't come in and checked in a while. I want, automations automatically to remind people. And I said, no problem. So I took all of that and I just dumped it in our AI program and it developed it all for me. Right. So I didn't do it, I did some work, but I basically took all the pieces, like your mom would make a cake. I need some flour and stuff and put it in there and it created all this for us. So the animal abuse registry is really this just remarkable piece of AI technology that we use so that you can communicate as the sheriff's office very quickly. I need to put someone in the system. I need to check someone in because they're here after their 1 year checkup mark. And now we're looking at going to other counties where they've got, basically spreadsheets, right? And saying, hey, do you want to automate some of this process? So yeah, the animal abuse registry is one of those things I was just so excited to be a part of, because it's such a great way to, give back to our community in such a tangible way. And again, it's a great example of, AI for good.
Tell us, I know that you're not on the program to plug a book, but I want to plug your book because people may find this as interesting as I find it, and they may want to read more about it and from your perspective. So what's the name of your book and how does somebody get it?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's called Don't Unplug. I think the hard copy is out of print now. It's almost a decade old. But the rights were bought. They're turned into a movie. The guy who plays Dexter plays me in the movie. It'll be back out in paperback soon. But if you want a copy, you can just reach out to me and I'll give you a copy. I'm not too worried about that. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know. It is available on Audible, but you'd have to listen to me talk for 8 hours, and that's a lot.
Do you have a website or a web page people can go to?
Oh my goodness, I got all of that. The only thing I don't do a lot of is social media. Just chrisdancy.com is my website. There's a lot of, again, you don't even have to, there's enough just on YouTube of me doing videos and things like that. But most importantly, I always tell people my phone number is on my website. So if you're out there and you're struggling, you're depressed, you're happy, you're scared, you're whatever, I'm old. I like the phone. Do not email me. I won't see it. Either give me a shout. People call me all the time. My spouse will tell you I'll be in the middle of the day. Somebody will call from somewhere in the world and say, I watched a show with you on. You said, give me a call. The most important thing we can do in the world we're about to enter is stay connected and tight with people we don't know. It broadens our horizons. It makes us feel more connected and more important and gives us purpose. So if you're someone who's struggling or just want to chat or you enjoyed this show, you don't have to like, comment, or subscribe. You can just call me up.
I'll tell you what, you talk about movies. I always had the fantasy in the movie they would have Josh Hartnett play me, or maybe George Clooney. But when the director said, well, we think we're going to get Danny DeVito to play you, I said, all right, that movie got kiboshed really quick.
I think it's the voice. You've got a good character voice. You're what do they say? You've got a face for radio. What's that?
Face for radio, they say. So, anything else I didn't ask you that you could summarize that you think the listeners should know or be aware of that maybe we haven't touched on? Because we touched on a lot, and I just wanted this to be an intro for people so they can understand AI better than they might have before they listened. So what else is there? Is there something I didn't ask you that you said, geez, I wish Giardino would ask me this?
I think the most important thing, and hopefully we did okay keeping it straightforward. You okay with how we did?
Yeah, I think it's understandable, which is what. Listen, with my listeners, with my 6 listeners, they need something they can understand.
Oh, you'll get a few more than 6 after this show. So, I think the most important thing that we didn't cover is like, what can you do about it? You're a dad. You're a small business owner. You're a kid. You're a government worker. You're in law enforcement. You're not law enforcement. The first thing is don't be afraid of it, right? You've got to get involved right now. If you don't use, one of these AI models, I can guarantee that AI model is using you, which means you've got to be able to start to understand how they work, right? You don't need to go to school for this. But luckily, if you're in the state of New York and you're over 25 and under 55, you don't have a degree, you can go to school for free, right? If you want to do some school, we've got a great program right up here at FMCC, as adult students are always going back. But embrace it. My biggest fear, Sheriff, is over the next 3 years, and I'm going to be aggressive because I think it's going to be more like 2. We're looking at a world where economically, people, unless you're a plumber, your whole world is going to be shaken up by what is being done by technology around you. All right.
Yeah. And you can either keep up or keep out.
You have to. I mean, this is not like it was with the, computers in the 80s, internet in the 90s, cloud computing in the 2000s, mobile phones in the 2010s, social media in the late 2010s, right? This is not like, this is different. This is as big as electricity.
Mhm.
This is as big as the car. You know, people always like to talk about the Mohawk Valley being decimated, right? You know, when all the mills left. We're looking at that at a global scale right now, just with how much things are going to change. My final prediction is by 2030, people aren't using phones. They've got smart devices in their ears, like the AirPods they just listen to. They've got I've got smart glasses that take pictures and talk to me. We have got to get serious about our relationship with technology quickly.
Hey, Chris, I'd like to thank you very much for being on with us. Please stick around for a couple minutes. Let us do the wrap up, and we'll touch base before you go.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you for everything you do for Fulton County, and for helping out with the Animal Abuse Registry. You're a leader in that respect, and I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. As we wrap up, I want to thank Chris Dancy for our show on AI. I think it's very interesting, eye-opening, and educational. I hope you learned as much today as I did. Please like, share, subscribe on YouTube, X, Apple, Spotify, and Facebook. This has been the Rich Giardino Show.
Like and subscribe to The Rich Giardino Show, part of the Elite Influencer Network, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time on The Rich Giardino Show, where the Constitution, crime, and politics meet.